Good evening. Welcome tonight. We're going to have our board meeting. It is November 16th. We are going to do a roll call right now. Kathy Toasty. Here. Carla Torres de Luna.
Here.
Elizabeth Martinez.
Here.
Lisa Marks.
Present.
And Jan Gritz. We're all present. We're going to go to closed session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Here we go. Good evening. We are back from closed session. There was no action taken during closed session. We'd like to do the flag salute right now. How about you, Superintendent Satchin?
All right, ready, salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I believe our clerk has some public comments.
Yes. Before reading public comment, I just want to read our parameters. Welcome to the Board of Trustees meeting. Members of the audience and the public are invited to address the board on any subject on tonight's agenda and when the item is being addressed. During the school board meetings, the public may also speak to the board on subjects not on tonight's agenda during public comment. To help the board conduct their meetings efficiently, the board asks that if you wish to comment, right now you can submit via email or call in. Individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda item. The board shall limit the total time for public input on each item to 15 minutes. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation, depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional speakers speak only if they have something new to add. And that is BB 9323. Speakers are advised that their speech may be open to civil liability, defamation, etc., if it involves complaints against staff. Speakers in this instance are encouraged to speak about the complaint with the complaint officer or superintendent about the complaint process policy 1312.1. So with that, we have a couple of public comments. The first one, what are the rules for the use of basketball courts? There's people playing day and night constantly. The gates are always open and the people are allowed at all hours of the day. I want to know why this school is just completely open to the public, but no other school is. The subject line's Rancho San Justo. Dear board members, after last month's board meeting, I wanted you to hear from my Hollister School District teacher of 20 years and a mother of a student in one of our middle schools. First of all, masks are working. My grade level at my school site has not had one episode of COVID all year. Knock on wood, I'm Irish. And I teach primary. We wash our hands and use sanitizer often, and the students never complain about wearing their masks. Secondly, there is nothing to fear about the vaccines. All the teachers except around 30 out of 300 have been vaccinated, and there have been no detrimental effects. It will be coming up on 1 year, and we have been vaccinated and are okay. We are not zombies, and our DNA has not been changed or taken over. Our children who have been vaccinated are great too. My middle schooler had absolutely no side effects from what his friends have shared, none of them have had anything except maybe soreness where the injection was. Finally, I'm so grateful that a handful of my students in my grade level, 6 to 7-year-olds, have already gotten the vaccine. And many of the parents are planning on it too. They are listening to science and not the fear-mongering propaganda that is perpetuating this virus. As soon as 70 to 80% of our population gets vaccinated, we can start returning to a normal way of schooling without masks, where we can go on field trips, dress up for PE, sing in our winter program, group students for ELD, etc. We need people to spread the truth based on scientific facts. Masks work, and please get vaccinated so our kids can get back to school the way it used to be. Thank you for reading this, a concerned parent teacher. Dear Board of Trustees, I'm writing to you to let you know about the frustrations that I've encountered in my classroom after recent exposure. Once parents received notifications, I spent numerous hours over the weekend trying to answer questions. I would answer one and parents replied with 2 more. I completely understand that parents are looking for answers. I am answering them to the best of my ability. I understand that it must seem easy to teach this week with only having half of my students in class. However, I still must prepare for work for those who are at distance learning. Half of the students who are in my class have no idea that they have been exposed and have stated that they have not been tested. Some of my students have stated that their parents will not be testing them because they have no symptoms. This puts me in an awkward position when I am having to ask students if they brought their COVID-19 test results to give to me. Should I be the one to contact those parents when the student does not bring their test results to resume in-class learning? That's one more task added to my daily duties on top of my full schedule of conferences this week. I am not comfortable having the students in my class who have not been tested to return to in-class. I, as many other teachers in this district, have family to go home to and want them to be safe. I'm on the front lines doing the best to provide quality education to my students, but yet don't feel as if my safety is a concern. I worry that parents are not testing their kids as they are being told, and it is an honor system to provide COVID-19 test results to return to in-class instruction. Now, if I choose to contact those parents, I put myself in the position to look like the bad teacher. My job is to build relationships, follow the Capturing Kids Heart model, not have parents upset with me. I understand that everyone is overwhelmed at this time. I can only imagine how many calls our nurses receive. Don't get me wrong, the nurses have been helpful and have answered all my questions. I can also understand their frustration, as I've been facing it for the last few days. I would like the board to consider making COVID-19 testing a requirement before returning to in-class instruction after an exposure. I would also like to see someone at each school site taking the lead to collect these results. Parents need to be held accountable. This has definitely taken a toll on me the last few days. The stress over who is tested, who the exposed are, many parents are upset with me. We need a change and we need our teachers to feel supported. We are here for the students and need to feel safe as well. Please consider adding personnel to help with accountability. A concerned teacher. And we have a few more. Good evening, Board of Trustees. As a teacher working and living in the Hollister School District, I watch each board meeting. During the last board meeting, I noticed that some public comments ran well past their 3-minute time limit. Board policy dictates that members must limit their public comments to 3 minutes. Once upon a time, the board set a timer at the outset of each public comment to enforce this. I'm writing to you here today to encourage you all to honor and enforce this reasonable and legal policy. It is within your right as a public entity to have policy that limits public comments to 3 minutes. According to the First Amendment Coalition, case law generally recognizes a public entity ability to put reasonable restrictions on public comment during public meetings. For example, the 2nd District Court of Appeal in Ribicoff versus City of Long Beach affirmed a trial court's determination that a city transit board's restriction of public comment to 3 minutes per person per agenda item did not violate the Brown Act. It is by no means rare or unusual that there be a 3-minute time limit on public comments. Your policy of the 3-minute time limit is noted on the board agenda and on the website. People who submit public comments are made well aware of this policy. I understand this is a 3-minute policy that might not be seen as reasonable to certain subgroups of our population. As a proud history teacher and American, I am well aware of our right to freedom of speech. However, sometimes our right to speech has been reasonably limited in various legal ways. For example, the Supreme Court stated that one cannot falsely yell fire in a crowded theater, thereby causing panic. In addition, one's freedom of speech does not allow them to just say anything at a board meeting. The law offices of Best, and Krager notes, this does not mean that a member of the public may say anything if the topic of the public comments is not within the subject matter jurisdiction of the agency. The member of the public can be cut off. As you can see, one's right to the freedom of speech may be limited in several ways at board meetings. A 3-minute public comment policy is one such limit that is both reasonable and legal. Thank you for your time and consideration. And we have one more. Dear Hollister School District Board members, I am writing this evening to thank you for all you have continued to do in the face of great adversity. As both a teacher and a parent in this district, I am finally able to feel relatively safe for myself and my children in school. Wearing masks, keeping doors open, and the air purifiers running has worked very well to keep COVID transmissions low. Students have done very well wearing masks. Their learning and social growth has not slowed with these simple precautions kept in place. I am additionally hopeful with the vaccinations now being available for our children. My daughter received her first vaccine last week and is doing exceedingly well. We are all very excited to see the light at the end of this pandemic, this long pandemic tunnel. Please keep up the good work. Thank you again. From our teacher. You know what it is. That's all.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Now we're going to approve the agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, 5-0. Let's go now to reports, and our first report is 9A, a report on special education update. Gwen is going to give us our report. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, board members, Superintendent Sanchez, our district cabinet members, to all our school staff, administrators, family and community team members who are watching us in tonight's board meeting. Good evening to all of you. I'm Gwen McCarron. I'm the Special Education Director for Hollister School District. And joining me in tonight's presentation are our Special Education Coordinators, Mike Cruz, Jenny Hurgis, Julian Trice. And before we go to the meat of our presentation, we would, now I can hear myself way better. I don't know if I should start. But anyway, I just want to say good evening to all of you. Good evening to our board members or district cabinet members who are here tonight, and all of our school staff, administrators, family and community team members watching us at the very comfort of their homes. I'm Gwen McCarron, Special Education Director of Hollister School District, and joining me in tonight's presentation are our Special Education Coordinators, Mike Cruz, Jenny Hurgis, and Julian Trice. So Mike Cruz did a fantastic job putting together a special education video for tonight's presentation. Before we go to the meat of our report, we invite you guys to watch this short video.
Co-teaching has impacted Mays Middle School in a very positive way. Nice thing about co-teaching here is you can walk into the classroom and you won't know who the special ed teacher is and who the general ed teacher is. They work really, really well together, and it's definitely a team effort.
So I've been fortunate enough to have a student that's got to participate, my son, in the co-teaching here at Lad Lane, and he has become really confident in his schoolwork and his reading in particular. He actually loves having the support in the class when he needs it versus being pulled out later in the day to go over material.
It's very important because when we just started the SOAR program, when he was in elementary school, the SOAR program was just starting, so it wasn't communicative yet. And you can see the difference now where the teacher sends me a point sheet every day, so I know what he needs to work on, what he doesn't need to work on, what he's getting better at. Just, they would call me because before the SOAR program, they would just call me and say, hey, we can't handle your kid, come pick him up. With the SOAR program, he's actually encouraged to stay in school and figure out those coping mechanisms to deal with the issues and academics.
I have learned to use coping skills to tune out distractions, and that's what helped me to get to my success, and that's why I'm on here.
It's so hard to compress everything in a 3-minute video. I specifically told mine, make it short. Make it short, but those are just a few of the works that we have put in place. I'm not gonna go into every detail of our report at length and in depth. Our goal for tonight in this presentation is to be able to share our story and celebrate our success. And every small progress, big or small progress that we made as our department in this meaningful work would definitely, a boost to the morale of our special education staff, our school site administrators, and also motivation to a lot of our students. Even before the pandemic hits, we all know it's all in online newspaper, over social media, the struggles that our schools have faced in providing specialized academic support to our students with special needs. Not to mention, the compliance complaints that we have faced as a district, the lack of instructional practices and materials in the classroom, staffing, staffing concerns that we have, just to name a few. And then COVID hits, we got faced with so much challenges. We called it building a plane as we fly it. When we had to pivot all of these amazing things that we are starting to put in place and pivot to distance learning. But as a department, we found those challenges, and those challenges gave us an opportunity to rethink the way that we do in special ed. Not just COVID, but the challenges that we faced even before that. Rethink the way we do, reimagine how are we going to provide our special education services to our most vulnerable students in our district, and also start rebuilding the process. And these are just some of the goals that we have been working on: strengthening inclusion practices, building social-emotional resilience of our students, increasing academic achievement in ELA and math, and most importantly, our partnership with our families and community agencies, and also the area of compliance. I'm not gonna go into detail with a lot of our special education data, but our statistics would tell us that we need to do a lot of work in special education within our school district. I know we have a lot of things in place, but there is such more work to do to be able to provide that appropriate support for our students with special needs. Let's go to the next page, Brandon. This is such a good visual of our special education journey. It's so hard to capture what we have done in the past 2 years, and I just want to inform the board that I intentionally start our timeline when I first started to assume this position. And that's when we started seeing, with the help of our special education administrative team, our superintendent, our district administrators, our school administrators and staff, that's when we started working together to move the needle in special education. I'm not gonna go into any details, but I'm just gonna be bragging about that we have, I should just say, it's very rare, and this is coming from our State Department of Education, it's very rare for a very small school district like us to have such a numerous amount of compliance complaints that's amounting to a large district like Oakland Unified. I remember the first day in the superintendent's office, our superintendent Ochoa, when I first started, he told me, I'm not asking you to fix special ed in a year, because you won't be able to do that. I told him we can. And we will be able to do that, but I would be needing support to every department in this district, every schools, every staff, and every families. And that support started to unfold. And as you can see, we're starting the school year 2 years after without any compliance complaints. We were released by CDE in 1.5 school years from critical incident review, which is a step away from CDE going to our school district and working alongside with our administrators, going and looking at all of each compliances in every IEPs that they will get hold of. And when CDE reported to me, when I asked CDE what's the timeline of critical incident review, they told me when you reach 100% compliance, that's when we're going to release you. And typically it would take 3 to 4 years. But with the support of all our special education staff and administrators at the school site level, we achieved that goal in 1.5 school years. Even at the height of the pandemic, our special education staff were really working hard to the fullest. Going to the next page. These are just some of the program updates that we are working with each of what I would say a continuum of services here in Hollister School District. We provide continuum of special education services from the least restricted environment, which is our general education with some services and support from special ed, all the way to our most intensive special education programs, such as what we call our SOAR therapeutic program, or Specialized Opportunities for Academic Resilience and Emotional Resilience therapeutic program. On the left side of the screen, these are our components that we are starting to put together. When we started in 2019, our special education program lacked a lot of basic instructional materials in the classroom, and we started putting together a lot of curriculum and materials, and until now we're still in the process of making fine-tuning our instructional approaches and also our curriculum that we have in our classroom, all the way to progress monitoring. If you could scroll down a bit, Brandon, equitable access to learning, which is utilizing assistive technology and AAC devices in the classroom to make sure that our students will have access to general education curriculum. Social emotional learning is one thing that we are prioritizing. I think if there's one thing that we learned in special ed is that all our students, whether they have special needs or not, they will not be available to learning if they're not emotionally regulated. And that's one thing that we learned from our SOAR therapeutic program, and Julian Trice will be able to speak more about that this particular program has done an amazing things to our students in such a short amount of time, and we're starting to replicate what we learned from that program in our mild moderate program. And lastly, strengthening our engagement and support from our families and agencies. So moving to the next page is our compliance update. Yes, we're not starting with any CDE complaints, right? However, our State Department of Education routinely monitors all school districts every year with its compliance indicators through a comprehensive system oversight. So even though a district is not under the microscope of State Department of Education because of all the complaints, which we were in 2.5 years ago, they still continue to monitor all of the school districts with 14 elements or indicators of compliances. And 4 out of those 14, we are on target review. It's a good pat on our back, but it's not enough. just imagine if we weren't able to complete all of the 25 CDE complaints, this would be more than 4. Just to provide you with information, just tad background regarding all of these compliance indicators that we are working on, the data is based on 2018-19. That's the data that CDE has when it comes to our special education program. And that's the most solid data that they have because 2019-20, right, COVID hits. We didn't do any statewide assessment. We are under review for math and language arts assessment and achievement, and those two are tied with our statewide assessment because of our dashboard. Our district dashboard that showed us glaring red for special education students, meaning that our special education students are performing very poorly in statewide assessments. And this is not unique to our school district. All of the school districts are having the same challenges as we do. But what I think is unique with our school district is when we got the data report, we made that proactive step to identify as a district with the help of our County of Education and SELPA, our special education team, our differentiated assistance team, to identify the main problems of practice and start from there. Because it's a lot of times, and one thing that I learned being in the district since 2008, we did a lot of reactive approach. This time we changed our approach. Rather than addressing the issue right away, we want to find out the root cause of the problem and start from there. And as you can see in the one on the left, those are the highlighted, the ones highlighted in yellow. These are the action plans that we have in place. A lot of our data are all pointing to our students with special needs at the middle school level. So there's a problem that we have to address at the middle school level. And one of our action plan is our co-teaching approach, because based on the root cause, our students at the middle school level in the past, we're starting back to 2018-19, and prior to that, had been lacking access to general education program, because we decided as a district to put together a self-contained, quote unquote, RC class, in which we pulled our students and it became a period on its own. And that created this massive gap from what CDE would say an average, or that level in which all of our students are somewhat meeting the standards, but definitely our students with special needs are way, way below the standards. The other one is suspension. We were under disproportionate target review by Department of State of Education. Disproportionate meaning that students with special needs were being suspended at a rate higher, or at a rate that is disproportionate to students without IEPs. And I would say because again, this data was gathered from 2018-19 school year, and before that, when we started putting system in place at Mays and Ranches and Houston, that helped with the suspension rate. That's when we started putting supports in place when it comes to behavioral practices in the classroom. And a lot of those data were all coming from what we called back then our STEPS emotionally disturbed program. And that's when we started putting more of our efforts in our ED program and an RSV program, because all of those complaints were coming from those two programs in the past. And when I say it means that we are released from that disproportionality. We were given the good news last January from State of Department of Education telling our district that we were released from disproportionality because of the action plan that we have put in place and the results of that action plan that led to the decreased number of students with special needs being suspended back in 2019-20 school year.
Do we know by what number?
We know by percentage. They go by percentage, not by number. And then the last one is LRE preschool. LRE is least restrictive environment. In basic terms, it means that students with disability, when we say LRE, that's a setting in which a student with disability can access education, appropriate education to meet his or her needs alongside with non-disabled peers to the most appropriate extent possible. You may be wondering, why are we being targeted with our LRE preschool? We don't run a preschool in our district with the exception of our migrant preschool. We have our county of office running what we call the regional program for early childhood or preschool special education. However, more than 90% of those students are our students. Our special education plan and all of these compliance indicator review is good for 3 years. So CDE is giving our district 3 years to make sure that we target all of the goals that we have set forward in our special education plan, including LRE preschool. Or it means that, we're gonna be having, consequences every time we don't target that particular compliance indicator. And these are all huge things. And in 3 years, we've done a lot of efforts to stabilizing our district in a short amount of time, even in the midst of pandemic, right? And we are in a good position now to be able to move the needle further in special education. Go ahead, Liz.
So the LRE preschool, as you stated, we don't operate one in the district, but yet we're still held accountable to meeting the state expectations. So how are we going to work with the county, San Benito County Office of Ed, to ensure that we hit those requirements from the state?
That is a good question, Liz. And that's a very tough question too. I'm gonna be very honest with you, we won't be able to meet this target this year. First of all, we're not, with the situation that we have right now in terms of COVID, we're not allowing mainstreaming opportunities from another school coming to our TK and kinder classroom. That's one of the plans that we have in place, increased mainstreaming opportunities. But that is not enough. When it comes to percentage, we are way, way below. And that would prompt us to a conversation of what are we going to do with more than 90% of those students in our regional program? How are we going to provide access to preschool? And that's gonna open conversation at the board level, down to the district, down to the school site. Are we gonna have a conversation of opening our own preschool program down the road? All right. I could go on and on and on with the compliance, but I'm gonna give the floor to Mike to talk about co-teaching program at our school district.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Sanchez, district and site leaders and community members. My name is Mai Cruz. So this year is year 2 of our co-teaching journey. As you can see in our one-pager overview, Hollister School District is one of the 50 grantees of Supporting Inclusive Practices, or SIP, in California. SIP is actually funded by the California Department of Education, who provides statewide support and technical assistance to districts and communities in pursuit of inclusion and equitable systems. We currently have 5 schools which has co-teaching, and that's Sierra Vista, Lad Lane, Rancho Santana, Rancho San Justo, and Mays. And in those 5 schools, we have those 8 teams there. Majority of our 6th and 7th graders at those schools are in co-taught classes in either language arts, math, or both. Our plan is to add 1 more grade next school year. Last year, we started with only 6th grade. Co-teaching in a nutshell involves 2 or more professionals, typically a general education teacher and a special education teacher, or RSP, delivering substantive instruction to a diverse or blended group of students. Last year, a co-teaching task force committee was formed, which consisted of gen ed teachers, RSP teachers, site and district leaders, and they completed a 13-page recommendation report, which included logistical data, challenges encountered, because we had quite a few, and then importance of co-teaching, and critical factors to be considered to ensure successful implementation. And I'm happy to share that we have actually considered most of their recommendations. SIP continues to support our district this year. We are assigned a program coordinator from SIP who works closely with our department. Gwen and I meet with Janelle Mercado, our program coordinator, on a monthly or sometimes twice a month. We had our back to school workshop with site leaders, district leaders, and co-teachers last August 19th. We also have our dedicated co-teaching Padlet that was created by SIP themselves. Our next steps include really building site level leadership capacity and providing ongoing support for co-teachers, but also providing support in a way that works for them. So giving them an option. Would monthly check-in work for you? Would mentoring work for you? Would coaching work for you? And we are also working with San Benito High School so we can observe their co-taught classes. Their RSP classes, they no longer have full out, so most of their RSP classes are all co-taught classes. And we are still in the early stages of our journey, and the road ahead may not be a paved way. But I believe that as long as we all work together, just like what Gwen had mentioned, like working together, we'll be able to get where we are headed. I would like to share this story since I think it's very timely, which gives us a glimpse of what some of our students are going through. Just yesterday, I spoke to 2 RSP teachers because I went to a school site, and they still have self-contained RSP classes. That can be emotional, but I will try not to. And they shared with me how student morale is low because their 8th graders asked them if they are really sped because they go to that class. So some students, and please excuse my language, express that they feel stupid and dumb because they're not with their typical peers and they're in that classroom. And we know that this affects their self-confidence and motivation to learn. As a former RSP teacher, I've heard that multiple times, and it is heartbreaking, and that is why my excitement was through the roof when we partnered with SIP to support us in our road to inclusion. This quote resonated with me when we started our co-teaching journey. Inclusion is intentional. It is about identifying and removing barriers so that everyone can participate to the best of their ability. Moving on to the next page, I'll give the floor to Julian Trice. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Julianne Trice and I'm one of the special education coordinators here in Hollister School District. So I'm here to talk about the SOAR program, or Special Opportunities for Academic Resilience. This program is designed for students with emotionally based needs, and these students need assistance with they have social emotional challenges that adversely affect their educational performance. Now what this means is they are unable to function or make acceptable progress with services and or programs available in the least restrictive environment. The program is designed for students to grow not only in their social emotional development, but also their academic resilience. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of projects that we're doing this year. Our project this year is to implement the recreational therapy room, which you saw in the video. And we have 2 recreational therapy rooms. One is at Sierra Vista Elementary School and the other one is at Mays Middle School. Students will be utilizing the recreational therapy rooms as earned reinforcement, and it can also be utilized as time away, a safe place for them to take a break. And it'll also provide opportunities for them to socially interact with their peers while engaging in recreational activities. Now, I will say for the Mays Middle School, they had a part in selecting some of the items in their recreational therapy room. So it's not just what we picked, but it's also what they want to have in the room. So that's an incentive for them. Last year and this year, we are continuing to partner with the Diagnostic Center. And it is during our implementation phase, because during COVID, a lot of the training was done online. So this year they are coming out in person. The Diagnostic Center provides continuous training with the SOAR staff on a monthly basis. So we do have trainings on a monthly basis, as well as individual school site trainings as well. And these trainings are based on evidence-based practices and trauma-informed practices, because a lot of our students that come into the SOAR program or come into the school district, they do have trauma. And our goal with the Diagnostic Center is to strengthen the SOAR program and make sure that the program components are being implemented with fidelity. Another project that we have is a SOAR brochure. There's a lot of parents that have students that are coming into the SOAR program that do not have that knowledge. So the SOAR brochure has been developed to share detailed information about the SOAR program components with parents who have students that are transitioning into the SOAR program. It highlights the different program components embedded within the program, emphasizing social emotional development and academic resilience. The end goal, mission, and vision of the SOAR program is that all students can and will learn. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Jenny Herges and I'm a special education coordinator with the Hollister School District. If you could scroll down to above that, to the mild moderate sensory room. Oh, sorry. The Life Skills Studio encompasses a kitchen, living room, office, and laundry space to support instruction in independent living and functional skills. Such skills support students within their home life and in job readiness. Some examples of activities that the students engage in are meal preparation and cooking, washing and drying dishes, mailing letters, learning their telephone number, sorting and folding clothes, and vacuuming. And this supports the students in becoming independent citizens within their home environment and within their community. A projected venture is a school site coffee cart for students to develop and practice job readiness skills, such as customer service, learning money skills, and engaging in making coffee and baked goods. This also supports speech and language communication skills. The funds from the coffee cart can return to the Life Skills Studio to buy supplies or to support in paying for field trips or materials for the moderate to severe STC students and classes. We're also working on initiating a task force to support in the development of a strategic plan for the moderate to severe program. The task force would include teachers, paraeducators, service providers, and parents. The team will engage in the needs assessment of the moderate to severe program by engaging in conversations and answering focal questions in relation to the areas of curriculum, staffing, instructional practices, community and family partnerships, inclusive practices, social emotional learning, etc. The information gained from the conversations will allow us to identify areas of strength that we can build upon and identify gaps within our program. And then recommendations, strategies, and further training identified through the needs assessment will be proposed and implemented to build a stronger moderate to severe program for our students. And if you could go to the next slide, please. Okay. We also have a mild to moderate sensory room at Rancho Santana. So within the classroom environment, there's two prongs to learning. The first prong is academic instruction, and the second prong is social emotional learning. The sensory room at Rancho Santana addresses the social emotional component of learning. The room includes a rock climbing wall, a swing, and sensory objects that support students to regulate their bodies and their emotions so that they're ready to learn. The sensory room is embedded into the schedule of the mild to moderate STC classes, and the special education teachers and the occupational therapists work with the students to learn coping, calming, and self-regulation strategies to build social emotional resiliency. And we have plans to expand the concept of the sensory room to other school sites. We're utilizing what is working in the SOAR program and incorporating such interventions and strategies into the mild to moderate programs throughout our district. Last summer, social emotional learning was part of the daily schedule, and we have extended this concept into this school year. The mental health therapists push into our mild to moderate classes twice a month and are modeling strategies that can be utilized in instruction by the teacher. Our goal is to have a social emotional learning embedded into the daily schedule with the use of the Second Steps curriculum program. And I'll turn the floor back to Gwen to close this out.
So the last page are our next steps. Pretty much these are the steps that we are currently working on, that we would continue to work on until we achieve those goals. that are listed, that are on your screen. Just to add a little to what our coordinators have presented, we've learned a lot in prioritizing our, I would say, the most dysfunctional program that we had when I first assumed this position, and that is our AD program. We learned a lot from identifying our problem, identifying the problems of practice, analyzing data, putting together a system of support, and we've seen the impact to our students in such a short period of time. And what we learned from that process in making sure that we do everything strategically and in a very organized manner with the help of the Diagnostic Center. These are agencies coming from the State Department of Education, and this is their first time working with a district in San Benito County. First time working with a school district in San Benito County, making sure that we are partnering with the experts at the state level to help us continue building an effective program for our most vulnerable students. We also learned from the practice in our AD program that we could replicate some of it into our mild moderate program. Julian mentioned about embedding social emotional practices within mild moderate classrooms. We started our sensory motor room in Rancho Santana. It's one thing that we're also replicating in other school sites with SDC. Lad Lane is our next priority school in terms of building a sensory motor room. Even as a teacher, when I was teaching a moderate to severe class at Lad Lane, we know that sensory tools are very important input to our students with special needs to help them with self-regulation. And that's one thing that we are starting to put in place, that we will continue to put in place. Just like what Jenny said, we're just starting the process. Our next priority programs would be our SDC special day classes, our moderate to severe and our mild moderate. We're gonna be focusing a lot of our effort and energy while while we're strengthening the other programs such as SOAR and our RSB program as well. Well, in closing, I just want to say that we have come a long way as a school district in putting together or in stabilizing our special education programs, but we're not there yet. We still have a lot of work to do. And I just want to acknowledge all of our special education staff, our general education teachers, especially our school administrators who have worked so hard and partnering with me and the special education team here at the district, our district administrators, in making sure, that we would start rethinking the way we do with our students with special needs, because whatever we do with our students with special needs would benefit all students in the classroom. And I really do invite you to visit our co-teaching class. The last time I was there, it brought me to tears that I had to step out of the classroom and just bawl, just cry. Because I see it with my own very eyes, an exceptional teaching practice that utilizes equitable tools for all students. In that room, you would see all of the vulnerable students combined, our ELs, our foster youth, our homeless, social economic disadvantaged students, students with special needs, but you have these two amazing teachers working together and making sure that everyone has access to learning and employing different instructional methodologies all the way to classroom management. It's amazing to see what our special education teachers and our general education teachers are doing in some of our schools. And I would say some of our schools, because we experience a district-wide mandate in changing the mindset of all of our schools when it comes to all means all is not effective. We have to restore to grassroots approach. And that's what we did this school year. And we've seen unfolding and right before our very eyes, how our students with special needs thrive. What Maya had shared with us is just a very few examples of what we experience every day. And I can just wait for more stories coming from the students with special needs who started feeling that they belong. Finally, they belong to a school, which provides support to all students without isolating them, that they are being labeled with students with special needs. And I just want to, end our presentation by reaching out for support on behalf of the special education department. We would like support from the board members, our school, our families, our community members, to continue give us words of encouragement, hope and grace, and continue that partnership with us, because we can't do it by ourselves. Like I said, we are just starting the process, but together we will make everything happen for everyone, every student within our schools, within the school district. So thank you so much, and we welcome any comments and questions. Go ahead, Jen.
Well, when I can say that the reason I got on the board was because of special education, and you were not employed in your position when my grandson started, and it was a nightmare. So I can say from my personal experience that the change that you have brought to our district has been phenomenal. And I have nothing but praise for you and your team. I am curious, how do the parents react to the activities that the SOAR program has brought to their children? What did the parents say? Because if I had a child in that, I would think it would be pretty cool. What did they say? Do they have a comments to make?
Oh, absolutely. One of those interviews that you saw was one of our parents,
Right.
Nico. And I don't know if Miss Kathy remembered Nico back at that lane. But Nico has struggled so much, and ever since we revamped this program, we saw the change happening. And I just want to say, when we started putting systems in place, we partnered with our parents, because I see that in all of those IEPs when I started in early of 2019, because they're the ones who filed complaint, against the district. So I had to sit in every meeting and pretty much tell our parents, allow us to do our job.
Right.
Allow us to do the work, trust us, and partner with us. And I could go on and on and on, but one of the parents that I would like to share with you is her son was awarded as Every Child Succeed Award back into last school year, and he was featured in one of our online newspaper, and he was featured also at the South Bend County level. And this is a student who we are already thinking of placing in a non-public school. And one thing that I'm truly proud of is that we partnered with parents the first day we shut our doors. Our mental health therapists were already contacting our parents, providing support at the onset, even though we don't know how long are we going to shut our schools. A lot of our students struggled social emotionally at home, but none of our students in the SOAR program during that time struggled. And it's because of that support that we have already put in place prior to COVID. So we have been seeing, the potential when it comes to addressing those social emotional support at the very onset. That Nico's mom is just one of the parents, that we highlighted. But every IEP meetings that I would sit on, it's all about that partnership in that meeting. All praise, with the work that both schools and families have done. The school, we didn't do it by ourselves. Our families had to step up to the plate and really partnered with us.
It's awesome what that classroom will do for children that need that extra help. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Good night, thank you.
I-
Go ahead, Liz.
One comment, because everything in your presentation was spot on. Thank you to you and your department and everybody that works there. And for me personally, this is a world that I had no clue. And so, I think now that, my grandson is starting at the Hollister School District and is in the special education program, it will be like Jan, you'll live and breathe it. So, but to me, in looking at all of the things that we're doing for our special education students can transfer also to our gen ed. And I would love for us to start incorporating it into our general ed populations, because the social emotional piece right now is so desperately needed by all children. And so we could learn so much from your program and embedding that into just everyone versus, and it's then everybody's program. It's not special ed, it's our Hollister School District program. So to me, that is my hope and that is my wish moving forward, that especially right now with all of our kids and our social emotional needs that are out there, we could learn so much together and build on an environment that isn't just, it was born here, but I would love it to grow and be an institutional type of, world for all of our kids, because it's so desperately needed. So that is where I hope, we could move towards.
I know that at RSS, the sensory room is being used by other classrooms. Yeah, I think that's awesome.
And see, to me, like the vision, even with what we're experiencing right now, right? With our kids and the behaviors, even across the board, right?
Right.
Everywhere, from all gamuts, all walks of life right now. So, and even trying to figure out, like, when we come back in January, I know like in different countries in like China, they focus on that piece of the child first. Before even introducing any academics, you're teaching your basic behavior, engagement, respect. If we could, and this is just me thinking, doing something like this, but universal, that first week when we come back from break, Christmas break, and having all classrooms teaching this to our kids, to all the kids. These modules, whatever you call it, but I would love to engage our kids into that before we start doing the academics. And getting that baseline, getting that feeling of
community.
We're here together as one community. And I know a lot of what we can learn from what's happening here can truly transcend even into our general ed population and really strengthen everybody. Just, when I was reading, I'm like, oh my gosh, we could do so much more.
I agree, and talk about sensory, I carry.
Oh, I cannot do that.
I'm just saying, it's, many of us need different things to like think or, not mess up my Rubik's Cube, but I use it, like, if I'm in a meeting where I'm comfortable and, then I use it to think. Like, I'm like, okay, let me think about, and so that it's not a stigma.
Right.
And I think, I really like what Trustee Martinez is saying, that let's take away the stigma. Sometimes kids might need a wellness room or a sensory room to just, so I think that's a great idea. But you're doing great work, that's pie in the sky and one day, but you all are doing great work.
Thank you. More work to do. But I just want to say, like, just real quick, and thank you for bringing that up, Liz. I think our district has been very proactive in recognizing that we need to prioritize social emotional of our students, and our SE team, who reported 2 months ago, have already started, that process in all of the school sites. And a lot of those members actually Daniel, Romero, and Adina were part of that process for the SOAR therapeutic program. So when you mentioned this about replicating whatever we put forward in that program, it gave me goosebumps because you know what? We have those members who helped us in putting together pieces of this particular amazing SOAR therapeutic program who are now providing support in general education. So we are very hopeful that we're gonna be, going or addressing that vision that our board would have. But I feel like we should have more conversation moving forward on how are we going to make that vision, a reality and putting together a plan. But our district has been proactive with that. All right, have a good night.
Thank you.
President, we forgot something to honor our Indigenous people. I know.
Mr. Becerra, I'm gonna have to ask you to sit down for a moment.
That's 1 minute.
Oh, let's do during the minutes.
Perfect.
Perfect, go ahead.
Perfect.
You're fine.
Sorry, thank you. Logistics, I'm trying to figure it out. That's at the end, right?
One next step. All right. Go ahead, Mr. Becerra.
Good evening,
Good evening.
President Grist, trustees, Superintendent Sanchez, all those tuning in at home, hope all are well. I am up here to introduce a gentleman by the name of Scott Leopold. He is going to be presenting this evening on the demographer report presentation for the enrollment projections. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Scott. How you doing, Scott?
Great, thanks for having me.
Good evening.
You guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Excellent. Let me share my screen real quick. Welcome to my office/classroom. Okay, I'm Scott Leopold with Cooperative Strategies. I'm here to present the enrollment projection report to you all. I have been at this for about 16 years, and so all I do is these types of studies for districts around California and the rest of the country as well. So this is just our outliner agenda. I'll briefly go through this historical enrollment, some of the inputs that we used, what our methodology is, and then we'll kind of show the district-wide projection. So what this first slide shows, this is just the city limits of Hollister, and you can kind of see the outlying area, and you can see where the schools are on the map. We have an inset map on the bottom left that shows the whole district. So you can see those extents that go out beyond our kind of zoomed in area here that has our schools in it and the city limits. I just want to point out, we do have the Rancho Santana building here. This is the TK8 school. And we've got Gabilan Hills over here as well. I just wanted to point out that we still have it on the map, even though it is closed. Those kids are at Rancho Santana.
It's HCLA now.
Yeah.
Not Gabilan Hills anymore. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. So this next map shows just our attendance boundaries at the elementary level. And what I want to just focus on, understand completely that we're showing Rancho Santana on here. This is the boundary for the elementary portion of that school, understanding that it's a complete vertical TK8. But you can see the boundaries for the other schools that we have in the system as well. And if I go to the map on the next page, this shows the boundaries at the middle school level. And so the Rancho Santana boundary is completely the same. And so just to go ahead, I'm sorry.
Here for a moment, because we have changed Calaveras, Sunny Slope, help me out, guys. Calaveras, Sunny Slope, Sarah Vista, Lad Lane are all going to be TK through 8th grade. And somehow or another, that information didn't get to you, Scott.
Okay. Should I keep going?
No, yes, but you
Okay.
needed, we needed to tell you that, so.
Oh, perfect. So this shows our historical enrollment going back the last 10 or 12 years. The big takeaways here, it's been relatively stable, trending down slightly. Starting in 2016-17, it started trending up. It went from about 5,400 students up to about 5,600. And then 2021 hits, we see that COVID dip at 5,397. And then this school year, it came back up. We're back up to 5,734. So we had a big rebound out of COVID this year. It may not be over yet, but this you can kind of see how that trend continued, getting back to kind of what that original trend was after that COVID dip there. And then we show the elementary grades in the blue and the middle grades in the gray on this table so you can get those counts. I think there might have been a little bit of confusion on this slide. This is students that are coming into the district from the outside. And so this shows our historical, 2017-18 data, 2018-19, 2019-20. We had 218 kids coming in from outside the district, 199, 247, and 181. And that 181 is counted in that total for 2020 of 5,397. And so those are students that reside outside the limits of the district that are coming in. This shows that data by school. I think one thing just to point out here is that the dual language academy that we have, really that accounts for about 1/3 of the IDTs coming in. And so that's where the majority of those are coming into the system. Now just our overall methodology, our direct inputs, we use our existing student enrollment. And so this projection is based on the last year of data being 2020-21. And so I've showed the actual enrollment that we have this year for the 21-22, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the last year of input in the projection was 2020-21. We look at the cohort survival factors, and I'll show that on an upcoming slide. And that's the number of students that progress from grade to grade from year to year. We look at birth rates, historical and projected number of births within the school district and the county of San Benito are used to project the incoming kindergarten enrollment from the residential units. We also have student generation rates, and so we find the average number of students generated by each house that's new within the system, and we use that to project enrollment from future planned housing. And again, that information on future residential was obtained from the cities that serve the district, and so it's based on what they have and what they anticipate the unit development will be by year. So these are our cohort survival factors. And so what this, I think this is just a typo up here, that might have led to some confusion. This gives us the percentage of students that go from grade to grade from year to year. And so this just shows us by school, Sierra Vista, the kindergarten to first grade was 103%. That means that if we had 100 kindergarten students last year, we observed 103.5 this year. And the numbers that are in red show where we essentially lost students. So from first to second grade, they may have lost, two students. And this is kind of aggregated so you can kind of see what that percentage is going through. This is our birth data. Early 2000s, we had our birth counts by the zip codes that we used were, the zip codes that we used for this were 95023 and 95024. And this is from the California Department of Health. It was up in, 2005, 2006, and then it kind of dipped a little bit, and it's starting to come back up again. And so we've got the births by zip through 2019, and then we're starting to use the projections from the Department of Finance for births, projecting births for 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. And so you can kind of see that those trends are continuing to go up. We do have a little bit of a dip in 2022. Again, those are the projected births for that year from the Department of Finance. And you can kind of see what that rate is, that rate change from year to year. We talked about this a little bit earlier. These are the student generation rates that we use for planned housing. And so we were able to kind of analyze what our rate is for new housing historically. And so for elementary schools, we're looking at basically 0.26, 0.25 students per unit. And so we're looking, for every 100 homes you get, we're looking at about 25 or 26 students. That's for single family detached. At middle school, we're 0.87, so about 8 or 9 students per 100 homes, for a TKA total of about 34 and a half. When we look at multifamily, 0.17 for elementary, 0.086 for middle school. So overall, it's about 0.26, and so that gives us about 26 students per 100 units of multifamily. And so that's that other piece of the projection. And so this is our projected single-family detached units and multifamily units over the next 8 or 9 years. You can see, there's a lot of development that we have projected. It's a total of about 2,200 units over the next 8 or 9 years. And this kind of points out where we have the development within the district. Allendale, Cerrado, I think these big ones, these are for the most part pretty much finished. We know that Santana Ranch is continuing to develop, and then these two developments that are kind of down here in the southeast are kind of where we're going to see the bulk of the development moving forward. We do have some infill in here, but it's most significant Santana Ranch and that area that's to the southeast of town. So here's kind of putting it all together. It shows our historical enrollment. And again, I just want to reiterate that the last year of input in the projection was that 2020 school year that was a little low because of COVID. And we had projected a rebound for this year, and I wanted to put the actual in this year instead of what we had projected last year. We had projected a rebound from COVID, but the actuals exceeded what those rebounds looked like. And so there's a little dip projected for next year. And then you can see that growth just continues to increase. And it's at levels of growth that you haven't seen in the past. And so enrollment going from about 5,600 students, or 5,734 is where we are now, crossing the 6,000 mark by 24-25, getting all the way up to 6,633 by 27-28. And so here is the overall projection by grade. And so you can see, TK goes up a little bit, and then we've got kindergarten going from we're at 601 this year, that goes up into the 700s by the end of the projection.
Why does it drop next year?
So the drop next year it's basically because of that input data, is that the last year of data that we had when we did these projections was the 2020 data. And the rebound that we had projected was not as significant as what we actually observed for this year. And so I think that we might want to take another look at these projections based on the 2021 data to try to get a more accurate number. But I think the big important piece is just the overall trend. And so, again, just because the actuals exceeded the projections for this year, I wanted to put the actuals in here so you can kind of see what it looks like.
So not necessarily will we see a dip next year?
Not necessarily. It could be similar, or it could be up more. This is just one of those things where it's a model that has certain inputs that we put into it in our last year of input data. Was last year's numbers. We used the 3-year average kind of to roll things forward, and it's a mathematical model. So that's the end of the presentation. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have about it.
I guess
I would like to know, okay, what would these, because the projections are not completely accurate, right? We don't know what's gonna happen in the economy and all the development. I mean, there's a lot of development, so we assume we'll have enrollment go up. It's an easy assumption. But what else could this information be useful for us besides planning and preparing, right? Or what other things do you see this data useful for us?
I think it could be used to help you out with facilities planning and staffing, because it'll just give you an idea of, you know, what your staffing need could look like going forward, and what the facilities are going to look like, and what your, you know, you can compare it to your capacity to see what those needs are as well.
Thank you.
Have you looked at the new census data, and have you compared that to this at all?
We have looked at it. It's not a direct input into the projections. I'm not sure if it's included in the standalone report, but it's something that we can incorporate if you want us to, just as an aside item.
Well, I'd like to know how we stand versus the census.
Okay.
I think that would be.
I don't think he heard you quite clearly. Put your mic closer.
I'd like to see what we are in regards to the census as to what we have now in regards to how many homes that would be in the census, correct? And the number of children, right?
So do you just want to see a comparison of like the 2020 census
Well, I'd like
versus
to see,
2010?
versus what your numbers are and how that stands up next to the US Census.
Sure. Well, the census will be different because that includes all students,
Yes.
private and parochial, but we can get a look at that.
And I guess I'm curious too, with that same data, when you're looking at page 33 on our packet, single-family detached homes and multifamily. I'm just thinking of our generational families that live here, and I know this is a guesstimate, but I think the census would give you a better picture, right? To kind of understand the dynamics in our town as far as multi-generational families.
Is it something that has been happening historically, or is it a new development that you're
No,
observing?
this community, you know, with a lot of our Latino families, we generally, and just to make ends meet, it's very expensive to live in Hollister now. So there are many families living in one home.
Multi-family.
So you could have 3 families living in one home. You could have multi-generational families living in one home. So those are all things that,
And the new homes are being built for multi-generational homes. So a lot of the new homes that are being built are built with the idea of grandma or grandpa or auntie or uncle living with the family. So a lot of the new homes are showing this, and they're building them that way specifically.
Okay.
So we've got the traditional plus, they're building new homes with that feature.
Good to know.
Got it.
and I think for me in particular, I think some of the data isn't reflective of what our district is going to look like. So the TK-8 schools that are going to be going online, as well as in your presentation on page 8, you know, we've got a school that we didn't incorporate into this. We have the biggest school, which was HDLA. I'm not sure why it's missing, but again, you know, and just trying to really assess what is going on in the Hollister School District and really gauging for us as a board what that would look like, you know, in that true alignment of where our, you know, district will be going towards.
Right.
And making sure we have enough space at all of these schools with the grade levels that we're gonna need to be housing.
And with that same, I think it's also important that you have the knowledge that our other schools are also K-8. Just if this is for us to really take a look at facilities and attendance, I think it would have been helpful for you to have that information as well, so that we have a full picture of, you know, where are all our kids, who's going where, and where do we have capacity, right, for movement.
Capacity and extra kinds of buildings, like the science and the gym and those sorts of things.
I think the page 8 board deals with the student or the schools that are schools of residence, the neighborhood schools. Our schools
That's
of
correct.
residence are not listed on here,
Right.
and that's why they would not be.
Oh, because it's a.
Oh,
And no
that's why
AAA.
there's no
That's
AAA
why
and
there's
there's no
Okay.
Because,
Thank you.
yes, students have to transfer to those if they want to go, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, that's fine, thank you.
I didn't realize
Yeah.
that was the case. You know, I thought we were just analyzing all schools that, you know, in all of our areas.
That makes sense.
Because it just, you know, we do provide those, desirable programs, the AAA and the dual language. And as you can see, they're very sought out. And so I don't see those going away anytime soon either. So, it's definitely something that has to be incorporated because we can pull from anywhere from town, right, for those schools.
Yeah.
So, I get what Erica's saying, so I don't know how your data.
It's included in those numbers, like in the overall district-wide projection, it's included in there.
Okay, got it. And
It's a district-wide projection, it's not a projection by school or by program.
Okay.
I'm curious about, and this is not for you, but for us to think about in the page, that same inter-district data where you point out Cerro Vista, and let me know if I'm understanding this, from first to second, second to third, there's a decline in the, right, yeah, with the red. So that's a decline, right, of people moving them out, moving their kids out?
It's an overall average show, so it's not student to student. It's just how many students did we have in second grade the previous year, and how many of them actually showed up in third grade the next year.
I think just for us, it's an interesting data point to think about why, you know, and when students request for inter-district transfer, this would be a question to the superintendent, do they say why they're leaving or why do they usually tell us? Do we have that data too?
They do.
Okay.
They give a reason.
Okay, that would be interesting to analyze.
Yeah.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Interesting.
Well, thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we're doing 9C now, correct?
Yes, yes.
So this is a report on the Educator Effective Funds, EEF.
So, good evening, board. Item 9C includes funding that will be received by the district. Under obligations to receive this funding during our November board meeting, I must report to the board that we will be submitting a plan in December for the board to approve these funds. It's a $1.2 million allocation that we will have to use to work towards professional development for our certificated paraprofessional classified staff and instructional assistants and administrators. So the plan will include a steady approach to its use to help offset some of the future needs. We will have up until the year 25-26 to expend that funding. So we will use it very wisely, and the plan in December will show you that, and it will tell you which years we will allocate the chunks of money to, where we are forecasting based on our current state, there will be greater need, so we will be using the money in that sense. Money can also be used for coaching and mentoring of staff. We can also decide on the different types of professional development elements that we want to employ. So we're excited to be able to finalize that plan and present it next month.
Great.
That's great
Very
news.
nice.
Great news, positive.
Very positive.
Yay.
Okay, now we're at, 10, A, which is consent items. May I have a motion?
So can I ask a question? If I have suggested edits to the minutes?
Okay, so then you would pull that particular item?
That
Because
should
right
have
now,
been done
they're,
when we approved the agenda.
Oh, all right, well, maybe that me. So it just goes as is, or we don't approve it? We haven't approved.
Oh, we haven't approved.
Yeah, we haven't approved the consent items, so
No, we have
when,
not.
why couldn't I ask to pull it right now? I don't understand why I couldn't.
well, I mean, in the,
Because it goes as a whole.
it does go
All
out as
right,
a
well,
whole.
then it is what it is.
So, for,
Can you not approve it?
she could.
Yeah.
She could,
No, it's okay.
And can we could also discuss it
Yes.
once we, right?
so
Well,
prior
then
to
it shows no
approving,
purpose to discuss it because there would be no opportunity to change it.
Correct.
Therefore,
Now I'm curious to what you're gonna edit.
it's all right.
but if
it's
a-
glaring.
If it's a minuscule thing, then you can always
Yeah,
let
well,
Erica know
yeah, I
what,
will.
what
But
your
if it's like
concern
a
is.
glaring thing, I would.
No, probably not.
But if, because consent items are generally, as it says, routine and may be enacted by the board in one motion, there is no discussion on these items prior to the motion unless a specific item is removed from the consent list for discussion.
Which I misunderstood needed to happen when we're approving the agenda as a
Yes.
whole.
It could, yes, but it also states under consent items that they are routine, and unless something is pulled prior
Right.
to the motion of a specific item can be removed from the consent item, or consent list. But it's up to Jan, she's running the show.
Let's let it be.
All right. I'm just gonna do it the way I've always seen it done. So that's where I'm coming from.
I understand.
Okay. All right, so do I have a motion on the consent item?
I make a motion that we approve 10A through 10F.
Do I have a second? I second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
It's okay, yeah.
I oppose.
There you
Okay, there
go.
you
Stand by your.
Conviction.
Yes.
There you go.
We respect it.
That's right.
It was my own. Yeah, I guess.
Now we're gonna go to 11.
11? Kind of weird.
Discussion, it's the board responsibilities
Ah,
is eliminated.
Yeah. Let me get there.
Page
Mine's backwards.
575. One more.
Here's my history lesson.
There you go.
I'm ready.
Holy cow.
That was my history lesson.
Okay.
Oh,
That my
I'm so
daughter
glad
said
that
I.
your daughter edited.
Okay, we put this on the agenda. This is for discussion of board responsibilities. And, you know, we wanted to make sure that all of our constituents understand what our responsibilities are and how we view how we see our job. So I wanted to express to you how I feel, and I've read this and the board feels, and then after I say this, the rest of the board is going to, if they so choose, are going to also make some comments. So this is about our statement about our responsibilities as a board of trustee for Hollister School District. As president of the board, I would like to express our role in mandates that come from the federal and state governments in regard to COVID-19. We as a board understand that all of our parents want to do what they feel is best for their children. We respect that each parent has a right to care for their children as they see fit. However, we as the Board of Trustees have a responsibility of following federal and state law. We took an oath that said that we would protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. We hope that all parents will respect our duties that require us to follow the rule of law. With this being said, we will continue to follow laws and mandates that require how school districts operate during this pandemic. As we continue to endure the pandemic and the flu season, we hope that we can have a relationship with all of our parents based on mutual respect and giving the best educational services that we can to your children. Now, would anybody else like to follow up?
Okay.
I think for me, Jan, you pretty much stated what our responsibilities are as a board. You know, it's to govern and provide the school district with board policies, administrative regulations, and to oversee those responsibilities to ensure that the district is always in compliance. Just like we have to be with our special education, these are all mandates, these are all responsibilities that we have to take on very seriously, otherwise there will be consequences for the lack of response on the part of the board.
But I also want our parents to know, because we're all parents and grandparents,
Correct.
that we totally respect all of our parents. And you have every right to raise your child and make decisions for your children the way you see fit. We have no problem with that. And we're not trying to tell you what to do. That's not what our job is. Our job is to follow the law.
So you're basically saying we as individuals.
That's right.
Are not making a decision, even as a board, that is influenced by a personal opinion.
That's correct. We're just following the law. We respect you as individuals, as parents. We know how hard it is to be a parent. We know how hard it is to make medical decisions for your children. That's what this is about. We have total respect for you this way. And we're not here to tell you what to do. Our job is to follow federal and state law, and that's what we have to do. We just wanted to make sure everybody understood how the Hollister School District comes to make our decision.
I think too that this board has been very open to listening to the public, and while I do appreciate, you know, the statement that, you know, our board president is making, I think it's also, the public also and staff has seen that we're also not rigid in our thinking, you know, and even if it is, even if there is policy, because we've changed policy, this board has changed a lot of things that for the better of our students, that we're not rigid and like, oh, just because this is the way it is, we're just, that's not who we are. We think about, you know, we look at research, we look at practice, we look at trends, we look at, you know, what our kids need, and that's how we base our decisions, and not by individual, but by the greater good, right? And so I think, you know, I appreciate that, you know, you brought that comment so that the public understands that regardless of what we think, we're at least, we listen to every comment.
and respected, right?
That's right. So, that's all we're going to say on this. We're just, that's a discussion item. Let's go to 11, our Superintendent Sanchez. Will you please lead us?
Absolutely. So item 11B is the discussion of the possible extension to the resolution that was adopted at the last board meeting. As we know, we have been taking a look very seriously at the state of COVID-related concerns in our district, and our board has taken the precautions to maintain our board meetings closed to the public, with their input being available via the public comments. At this time, it's yet again another opportunity to take a consideration of the current situation and discuss amongst the board whether or not we would like to vote upon a resolution again to maintain our board meetings closed to the public. The guidance is the same guidance. It's included in the previous board meetings. However, the resolution just has a different date. If we would like to consider it for adopting, that would extend the closing of the board meeting until next month. If we choose to not engage in the voting and not adopt this resolution, the board meeting would be open in December.
So not doing the resolution, we would open. Doing the resolution, we keep it the way it is.
Yes.
Would anybody like to talk about this?
Well, I would make a suggestion that if we could open it up for the December meeting,
December 14th.
to the December 14th regular board meeting, as an open, public meeting, with the exception of allowing limited, spacing, and collaborating with our nurses to see what that would look like in this venue here, to a certain capacity and limit, for folks that would be required to wear a mask, just as we all are, to be able to attend the public meeting. But since we broadcast it also live, I would like to give folks the opportunity that, for public comments, if they chose to either come in person or do the email public comment, or,
No, not email. It's Zoom or.
oh, sorry, the Zoom or the calling in, as an option. So in person, the Zoom, or the calling in.
And can we clarify why we can't do email? Because that is the format we've been using this whole time.
Yes.
And a lot of people are used to that. So
Yes.
why are we no longer?
So the good question and a good point. The reason why we would move away from the email was because under the executive order at that time, when COVID first became a known issue for the district in March 2020, that was guidance that was received by our legal counsel that was allowable. Now that we've been in the pandemic for, a year and a half plus, the legal guidance for our district is to allow for the methods that Trustee Martinez has indicated, so that we can ensure that public comments are made by different and separate people, and that everybody has the opportunity to have the same amount of time to be heard.
Okay, thank you.
So the district will put up how to Zoom in,
Yes,
and the calling will stay the same.
yes.
And we will have a limit to how many people can come to the public meeting.
You should know
We will put
yes.
a message out.
We will put a message out so you'll know how many can come. Mask must be worn. As you see us all wearing our masks now, so masks must be worn. And, yes.
Can we talk a little bit more about the limitation on how many people? I'm
Yes.
just looking at this room right now. I don't feel comfortable with more than a handful.
Well, it would be open,
Oh, we would open the whole
Yes,
room?
it would have to be opened up, yes. Just like before, so we'd have the whole space.
We have to get real guidance on that.
Yeah, we'll have the nurses guide us on how many people, and we will get it out to you. We have to, you'll know, you'll have plenty of time to know how many people will be allowed. And we will make that be known, so that, but we definitely are going to open up. And
We're definitely gonna open up, or that we're talking?
no, well, yes, we're not voted yet.
We're proposing.
Yes, we're proposing. But for us to open up, masks must be worn. And we're not gonna play, come on, let's not play games. We're gonna be adults here, and let's act like adults. And if you don't wanna wear a mask, then please don't come.
And I would like to suggest that, based on our public comment even today, that we ensure that we keep a 3-minute limit on public comment per person.
Yes.
And that way we preserve the equality of everybody's voice who wants to be heard.
You can be in charge of that.
I do have a phone.
Another question or consideration for us, if for whatever reason COVID goes, in a couple weeks.
I'll go sponsors, yeah.
At that, but my question is this, we're gonna decide to, it sounds like we're moving to opening it, but at that meeting, Superintendent Erica, can you bring this back, or does that go away?
This does not go away.
Okay.
We have some time to make that consideration.
Okay.
If the board should see that there is concerns.
We can bring it back.
We can bring it back.
I have
Okay.
a question. Can we consider it month to month based also on those concerns?
That could be something that the board could direct me to have this on the agenda each
Yeah.
month.
Might
until
as
it
well.
is-
I would
Yes.
feel more
Order
comfortable
expires.
with
Yeah,
that.
that way we don't have to be like, oh, I forgot to email Erica. Yeah, we could just have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we do not approve the resolution presented this evening for the next regular board meeting, and that we actually open to the public with the conditions that was stated here tonight.
Which would be the mask. And there'll be limited capacity. And
Opportunities to participate
via Zoom or call.
phone or in person.
And I hope that the public understands that what we're doing, we're really trying to be cooperative and try this out. And that, that we're all be in that collaborative spirit.
Okay, any further discussion? Yes.
Do we have a second?
Oh, I
Oh,
will
yes.
second.
There you go. All right, do we have further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Big 5-0, let's do this. 5-0. All right, now we're going to 11C. Discussion and approval for request for proposal RFP for E-rate funding year. That's you, sir. Yeah, Mr. Brandon Johnson, our Director of ITT.
Okay. For internet service, we pay a certain rate.
Hello, members of the board, bringing forward to you today E-rate, specifically for category 2. The district receives an 80% discount on the telecommunications equipment. We currently have an allocation of $1 million. This is expected to take a small fraction of that. We are going out for about 140 access points, and these will replace access points that were installed about 6 years ago. The district currently has about 350 access points deployed. We are one-to-one in the classroom. This is a smart move. The district saves a good amount of money for infrastructure upgrades. And this funding actually goes away after 2025. So the years of 21 to 25, and this is also used for our WAN, such as our internet, but that's actually category 1 specifically, but if there's any questions.
Sounds like we're doing something that we need to do.
Yes, this is helping the longevity of the amount of Chromebooks that we've added to classrooms and the density that we need to support.
Is it gonna take a lot to install, or is it pretty easy?
Pretty easy all in house.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How many school sites you said?
8.
8?
The only school not included, Rancho Santiago,
Okay.
because they're,
Because they just have
Yes.
state-of-the-art now.
exactly, and
Wow.
we did the same thing, E-rate with them last year.
Okay, I remember you talking about.
Yeah, we saved
Or
those.
somebody talking about.
Yeah, we were able to get it in time, even though the school wasn't even built yet, to still qualify and do all that, so it was very cool.
Thank you. Make a motion to approve?
Yeah, please.
I'd like to make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, Kathy seconds. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
All right. Our last one, Kip. Discussion and approval of first reading of updated administrative regulation.
Okay, good evening. This is, we're updating some of our administrative regulations, and this is your first read to update our AR 5145.71, which is Title IX compliant procedures. And this is proposed language from CSBA and from legal counsel that basically it establishes a process for investigating and resolving allegations of conduct that meets the federal definition of sexual harassment. So the board will have an opportunity to take a look at this, and then we can come back at the next meeting for final approval. Okay?
So this is just for the first reading, so it's not really anything that, because it's first reading, we don't really approve
Right.
the first reading, we just kind of get the information.
Present it to you, you have the opportunity to take a look at it, and then come back with any questions.
Okay.
Well, I already have some. Sorry. Okay, first off, I was looking for a specific part, and I'm asking this, I guess, for more for liability reasons. Where does it say, and I could not find it, Kip, where it says that when a child comes to somebody at school and says, this happened to me, that school person calls parents right away. And I don't see it.
The procedural.
Yes, I see it on page 613.
Towards the back.
It's towards the back. But it's under corrective and disciplinary action. And I would like to see this as the very first thing that happens. So when a child comes in and says to an adult at school, this happened to me, I I want, okay, and then you talk to the student, and then boom, we need to call mom and dad.
So would that be like a mandate reporting? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I think the parent needs to know right away. And the same with the person who's being accused of what they did. The parent needs to be called right away. And I don't see that in the policy.
Would it belong under formal complaint process, which is on page 607?
I don't know, and I, you know, I don't know where it belongs, but I looked and I looked and I could not find where we have it, because we want our administrators and our other adults that are on campus to know, you know, if I was a teacher and someone came to me, I would say, okay, and then I would take them to the office, right? And I would say to whoever at the office that was in charge, because I'm gonna have to go back and teach, here, this child, something happened, you need to speak to this child, and the parent needs to be called. Right away, because this is something that can't wait. And if there's been an accusation, I want that parent to know. I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I saw that, and then, but I'm wondering if they do refer to both parties and their advisors. Would a parent be implied as an advisor to the child
Then it should
as
say
one party?
parent, then it should say parent.
But there isn't always a parent. Sometimes it's a
Guardian.
custodian or
Oh, yeah.
you know, or some other kind of person who's in charge of them,
Then
but
it
not
should say
necessarily
that.
a parent.
Then it
But
should say that.
wouldn't advisor be that word? I don't know.
No,
That's where I
it should say parent or guardian.
or guardian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Everything that I've ever dealt with in education is parent or guardian.
If that's the terminology we use for other pieces of language within
Yes.
our district, I think that needs to be consistent with what
I
needs to
would
be here.
I would agree, I caught the tail end, but I would agree with what Jan's saying, you know, there's any kind of potential
Yeah.
criminal, you
Well,
know,
we don't even-
investigation or, you know, whatever allegation,
Yeah.
then
I
parents
just
need to be
think
notified.
we need to have in our policy, and maybe we need to talk to our attorney, I
Yeah.
don't know. But I want to see two things. I want to make sure that our parents are being notified. And I want to make sure that we're legally making sure that we are following and making sure that we're not open for a lawsuit.
Because it does say an investigation.
But you said up front that this was based on recommendations from.
Legal counsel.
Yeah, from legal counsel
But
and
I see-
CSBA.
But I see Superintendent Sanchez making note of that, so
Yeah.
we will refer to that and get back to you.
So that could be something, as Mr. Ward has said, that we would refer back.
Okay, yeah.
And many times
This is the first
CSBA proposes things like this because of lawsuits and other things that have transpired throughout the legal system that, you know, brings this forward for school districts to start looking at and making those changes effective with current law. And so, of course, we definitely want to make sure that we have our, I don't know if our BBs also need to be looked at, because this is the ARs, so we always have a board.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, so once the administrative regulation is adopted, then we address the BP.
Okay, all right.
You can understand where, I just want to make sure that, that the child that goes up to an adult at school, we handle it, that their parent is notified. I think that's super important.
And this is just students with students, right?
Right.
This isn't
Doesn't
even,
matter.
we're
No,
not
no,
gonna
no,
talk
well,
about.
it doesn't matter, but-
Well, because it says students.
Yeah, this is about student to student.
But it
No, I think it is.
Oh, yeah, it could be,
It's
yeah.
anybody that
No,
the student, yeah. So,
it's more than that. Yeah.
So are we assuming that it could be staff to student? Not
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
yeah, it says unwelcome conduct determined by a reasonable person that on sexual assault, dating violence, domestic violence, stalking.
Definitely.
So, yeah, that doesn't sound like child to child
Okay,
necessarily.
all right. So that's at a whole different level at that point.
Right.
To me, you know, the way it's addressed needs to be,
I just think that we need to have, it needs to be in there.
We can get guidance on that. I think that the parent role is also defined in board policy, that's specific to the parent role. 50/20, it could be referred to in this subtext. So we will get the legal guidance on it and we could bring it back in
Because I
December.
want to make it easy, because it shouldn't be hard for an employee to say, okay, then I have to go to this policy and I have to go to this. No, it shouldn't be hide and seek. So if something happens and, just a minute, and they're not sure, you know, then they can look it up quickly and then it's right there. Or we put it in their handbook and it's all on one page. But we need to make it easy and not, oh, you can go here. No.
and I'm curious, because I know we do Keenan videos, right? And we do the sexual harassment Keenan video, but the sexual harassment Keenan video is sexual harassment staff to staff, correct?
It's more.
It's more than there's,
Yeah.
because the one that okay, and even with the children, the videos, the children, okay, the different aspects, okay.
Yeah.
Because I just want to make sure, because if we're still utilizing videos like that, and this is changed, that there's not contradictory information that is being seen and heard from Keenan, and then board policy is something different.
Right. Sounds good. Okay, that was it. Anybody else want to add to this? Comments?
No, but I'd like to understand that we've given this input, so what happens next?
They're gonna bring it back to us with some changes.
But that will be to vote on.
Not necessarily, no.
It is for approval, but if there are things that we still do not like in it, then we could
ask
say.
for another
Yes,
That's right.
Okay.
We're not set, it's not set in stone.
Okay, that's what I needed to know.
Is the media harassment a separate, I think I've seen that before we reviewed, but would that be a separate piece and not included in this? If it's sexual harassment in nature, but use of social media?
I think that's a different policy.
I know we've reviewed it before,
Yeah.
but I don't know if there's a way to reference it here. Maybe ask, because, maybe ask the attorney if we need to do that.
Yes.
Because of what Jan's saying, like now I gotta go fish the
But it's true,
social
because
media
there
policy,
are
but it's
different-
sexual harassment.
Yeah, I want
There are
it
different
easy for
methods
the
and modes of sexual harassment now
Yeah.
that kids utilize.
I think we're thinking of, the actual text in the board policy, and then we're talking about what happens when an investigation takes place, what the steps are. And the investigation relies on board policy, but it's not necessarily, every step in the investigation is not reflected in the board policy.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
we just need to make sure that our staff understand.
Well, even as a
Understand
parent, if a parent came to one of us as a board member and saying, okay,
What's your
what's
policy?
your policy?
Right.
And we wouldn't have a clue as board members, then there's a problem. Sure.
Yeah, I'd be like, I think I have one on social media, but I don't know where it's at.
Can we let this go?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're on to board member report. Kathy, do you have anything?
an announcement, please?
Oh, well, we're not there yet.
Oh.
I'm following the agenda.
Oh, that's right.
Okay,
I'm good.
you're good. Carla, do you have a board member report?
No, just an announcement.
No, I don't have anything to report.
I have nothing to report.
Well, Lisa, you and I met with Crystal and had a very good meeting about how she's willing to help us with anything we need. She's opened up the county to help us with, and we should, make use of the help. So that was very good. And I did attend an intergovernmental committee meeting, but it was only 30 minutes long and not a lot was discussed. Future agenda items. Anybody have something for future agenda items?
If possible, if we could have a running tally of what we actually put for that in the board packet, because there are some things that we have brought forward that we lose sight of, and then if we didn't get to see it in this, board meeting, that at some point we know it'll be placed into one of the next board meetings, so I just don't wanna lose sight of, or keep regurgitating what those things that either Lisa or Kathy or,
I think you talked about the facilities with the city. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
We've talked about the capacity of our school. Well, before that one, I think the School for the Pipeline Task Force. That was, where are we at? Have they resumed? Are we gonna meet with them?
We had shared with the task force that we would take a look at it again in January. That was a few months ago when we had discussed that.
Okay.
So you think you'll set a date now, really, in January, we should be able to set a date now. I would do that, reach out to, how about, yeah, go Kathy.
The capacity, of our schools.
And we did, last month, talk about how, the enrollment had not been reported yet to the state, and that enrollment reporting would happen in December. So I want to make a note to revisit it in early 2022 from last month's. Yeah, from when we talked about the ESSER grade plan.
And then the other one that I was gonna bring up that's kind of linked in with one that Liz brought up last month is, can we look at, and so, if we can do this sooner than later, can we look at the idea of potentially shifting either our AAA, or looking at our charter, or looking at other school sites about, kind of, it's linked in with enrollment and should we move, there's a lot of development here, and what about space over here, and can we do like a review of our facilities as far as where do we have land, and where is it really congested?
And growth.
And I guess a board member report would be, that there is, and I was gonna bring this up to Liz, charter school reached out for a potential tour.
Yes.
So I said yes, but I wanted to see if maybe Trustee Martinez, since that's your area, if you would go with me, and then we can take a look at that area, which is it's still congested.
Actually,
still, with R.O. Hardin, right, the R.O. Hardin campus.
Nice.
Well, it's your area.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So,
Repetition goes, I know. It's okay.
Sorry.
No, yes.
Okay, so, perfect.
Definitely.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That was your area.
I did too. But I'm Calaveras. Is it? I think it's
Are
so.
you Rancho too?
Yes, I'm Rancho.
Rancho Calaveras.
It's
And
weird.
Lad Lane and R.O. Hardin.
Okay. I mean, I think all of us have been really flexible about,
Yes.
we represent the Hollister School District, but I want to be respectful that if that's the area you represent, then yeah. So I'll let you know, but yeah.
Well, actually, I'm on the same thing. I wrote down that we need facts from the census about, where are we gonna put these portables? We need to get a map from the city on the new developments. We got a plan for next year. We gotta get moving.
Right.
Where are we gonna put portables?
Right.
Where
Well,
do
but
we
before
see?
that, I think we should look at our existing.
Right.
And we look at AAA and the charter, right?
Well, yeah, but on the AAA, they have 165 students. And Liz has always said, how about Sunny Slope? Well, Sunny Slope has 603. So if we move them, then they're at 765.
Still smaller than HDLA.
Yes, but not by much, because HDLA is 816, and it's been staying pretty steady at 816. Calaveras at AAA is 729, Lad Lane is 713, HDLA is 816, Lad Lane is did I say that? It's 713. Where we have room is like Sarah Vista.
In the middle schools.
But the Sarah Vista has that growth that's coming in.
I know,
Right,
it's
and that's a
true.
big growth.
Well,
Yeah.
and shouldn't we, this is why it's gonna be on the agenda, right? But shouldn't we look at land, right? So it's not just the school.
Right.
But
So
how
if you
much
look-
land there is to
so if
put
you look
portables
at-
on?
You
Yeah.
have this space and you have two schools here, R.O. Hardin, right? And then you have Lad Lane over here.
Well, the other
gotta
thing
look
is
at-
like
May I
Sunny
say
Slope.
something?
Sure. Look at
'Cause
comparison.
we're already having a discussion.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
sorry.
I just,
Thanks, Liz.
okay. But again, I think those are important conversations
Yeah.
that we need to put on the agenda. And, I think it's a big one, as far as
It is a big
facilities, so I don't know if maybe a special board meeting would help for us to really focus in on that specific topic moving forward, because,
It's on everybody's mind.
and also, having a joint meeting with the high school. I know Superintendent Dr. Tenenbaum has approached me, particularly because I work there, but he did mention wanting to do a joint meeting with that board. And I think starting the school year, really looking at doing something like that, and really looking at what our common interests are moving forward in this community and with the development, because it not only impacts us, it impacts the high school.
Right.
And I think a joint venture
That's
and
what-
really bringing that forward, combining forces, right? With the districts and really, having those conversations with either developers directly or with your county board and city council. But I think it's important to
Right.
have
I agree.
those conversations. And
I
start
just wanna
working
get our
together.
ducks in a row first a little bit.
I agree,
I just
but
don't feel like we have our ducks in a row.
And
right now.
I agree.
But even, okay, so I can envision that, those kind of joint meetings to just be a conversation where we might learn, we might be, getting our ducks in a row might be expanded based on something they say.
Right. I agree.
That's what I
Okay, so,
If I may, I just
Yeah.
want to review so that we're clear. So we have on our list the facilities meeting with the city. We have the capacity of our schools. We have our enrollment report that goes to the state in December. So I'm assuming that that's just an update to the board, whether or not that gets
Yes.
submitted. Okay. A review of all of our facilities and growth, our census data, which we have not received yet, our map, a map from the city of all new developments, okay? A lot of these things, as the board has mentioned, are facilities related. I do want to just let the board know that tonight we did approve the contract with consultant Michael Bishop. Part of his scope of services includes his work with us to support a facilities plan. So this, everybody's on the same page. Everybody, I think, is thinking about the right things, and there are things that we have to definitely start looking at to prepare for next school year. And this contract, I believe that the board approved tonight, will help us along the way as well.
The other things that I had is, and obviously it's not gonna be on December, but as future agenda items.
Sure.
Is the parent ambassadors. And how long, but we need to look at the installation of portables. I don't know how long it takes. Yeah, as it relates, I mean, we need to know what a time frame is to put the portables in. And then, let's see, I didn't know, a discussion if we wanna do the, 2 school board members to visit the campuses and have those discussions again?
Yes. Is that something that we can do at our all-day
Monday?
vision?
I thought Monday.
I thought we were gonna do that there, or is
Well,
that?
no, I just wanted to do, if we wanted to do it, then we calendar it, so I thought we should have a discussion.
But aren't we gonna discuss Governance calendar?
Okay,
Yes, that's
all
what
right,
it
yes.
is for. Yes.
Announcements,
Yes.
Oh. Thank you. No, I just, I thought it was more appropriate to do at the beginning because it is so important, but this is Indigenous Peoples Month. And, considering that this area, and I'm not gonna do it justice here at announcements, at the tail end of our meeting, so I wanna ask for forgiveness to anyone who is of Indigenous Native background in our community, because usually land acknowledgement should be done at the beginning of a meeting. That is becoming a practice across different areas of people who are, trying to be respectful, trying to be, inclusive, and when I was talking about inclusion, I thought about, inclusion in many areas. So just to be mindful that this was a lonely land, it still is a lonely land. And that, I don't know if people know, that there's an area called Indian Canyon right up this road. And it's really beautiful, owned by the Sayers family. And they have things on YouTube, and Anne-Marie Sayers, and her family have had that property for generations, and they do talks and cultural teaching. So if any educators out there wanna, look into that and share that, maybe in their discussions in class this week. I think it's important, doesn't take long to acknowledge the people that lived here. And it, age appropriate, right? You can talk about the history in a way that is age appropriate to our students. This is not, it would not take away, it would just add to, the education of our students, of understanding the history and the reality of what happened, of that people, there was a genocide of Native people. And and I'm sure school districts did not do a justice to this population. They did not. There was boarding schools. And so just being mindful of that, and just, acknowledging, and that we can do better. So, happy Indigenous Peoples Day to anyone who is of Native and Indigenous background.
And I want to just add, for the future, if we could acknowledge with either a board resolution, and recognizing the months that come forward and not letting those things pass us by. I'd like to have us go back to that custom of doing our board resolutions to recognize not just, the different cultures and people that we're starting to acknowledge now, in our nation. But also, because we seems like we've gotten away from those recognitions. And I just want to bring us back to being able to be mindful of those things that are coming forward, and really doing our part to recognize, our staff, because we lost sight of our administrators' recognition, and, there's a lot of people that do a lot of great work, and there are different recognitions for all of them. And I just want us as a board to be mindful of those things, and I don't want them to pass us by.
And to be an afterthought.
Yes.
Right. I agree. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn to closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're going back to closed session, guys.